So hello everybody on this second day of the Orange AI Africa. I'm very glad to be here with you today to moderate these panels. We have three panels today in this second day, and we will go for these discussions on ground field experiences on AI and data one by one. Let me, before getting into introducing the people, the amazing guests we're having today, introduce the general framework of this event, if we can call it like this, since we are discussing frameworks when it comes to data. So this event is organized with Orange Digital Center, and Orange Digital Center is an initiative led by Group Orange. It is an initiative that makes a lot of initiatives for youth, organizing free training programs that goes through supporting entrepreneurs, startups accelerations, and even in the investment. All of this combines a lot of initiatives like Orange École du Code, Fab Lab Solidaire, Orange Fab, the corporate startup accelerator, and Orange Ventures Africa. All of this has been deployed in Tunisia, Senegal, and in Cameroon. 15 other Orange Digital Centers will be deployed soon. There will be Ethiopia in February, Jordani, Ivory Coast, Mali, Morocco, Egypt, Madagascar, Guinea-Conakry, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Burkina Faso, Botswana, Central Africa, and Democratic Republic of Congo, and Guinea-Bissau. All of these countries will have Orange Digital Centers deployed in them to promote entrepreneurship, technology, and help young entrepreneurs and young people from these countries access the know-how of the technologies of today. So, and this event about AI for all this week, as you have seen in this program, will be tackling this topic that you may have heard a lot about. AI, artificial intelligence. You have been introduced to the topic yesterday, and today we will dive into a very important aspect of AI work, and we are very, very glad to have very, let's say, prestigious experts with us today. Let me welcome, Sinan Kamal, who is the Data and AI Director at Orange Jordan. Welcome, Sinan. We are very glad to have you among us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinan. Let me welcome also Mahmoud Hassaan, who is the Senior Manager, Data Lake and Analytics at Orange Egypt. We're very glad to have you among us, Ahmed.
Thank you, yeah.
So Ahmed will explain later all these terms that you may not have the experience with. Data lakes and all these concepts, all these new jobs also will be discussed in depth on the fourth day of the panels. And let me also welcome Soulaimane Lahrech, who is joining us from Morocco. He's the head of data technology and science at AKUMEN. Welcome, Soulaimane. Good morning.
Welcome, Marwan. Thanks.
So we're really glad to have you all. You can watch this live stream on YouTube and Facebook channels of Orange Plus qu'un opérateur. And we will be diving into this topic for this hour, data, the core piece of AI. We'll try to understand what's the hard thing about the hard things when we talk to AI. You have all heard about these great models and these great results and predictions that could come, but there are a lot of cornerstone topics we want to address to have this ground field experience from our top-notch experts who are present with us today. So let me start without further ado. Let's go into the topic. Mr. Sinan Kamal, you are the Data and AI Director at Orange Jordan. And we discussed before this panel, and you told me, Marwan, listen, there are a lot of hard things people don't talk about when it comes to AI. So let me just, before giving to you the floor, Sinan, say that we were supposed to have with us Mr. Yaser from Orange Jordan, Yaser Asili, who is the data analytics manager at Orange Jordan. But so we are sorry for the loss of Yaser. He has a death of his relative. He couldn't be with us, but he wishes us a very lot of success for this panel. Sinan, back to you. So what are the hard things about hard things?
Thank you, Marwan. Yes, I do believe that today it's really trending terms related to AI, and everyone is talking about how much it's important, but it's had been a long journey till we reach here today after tens of years where AI concepts started to appear in the world, and even back into World War II when they started to have this concept that we use the machine to mimic what a human can do. So I do believe today with the new technologies like big data, like the new super machines that we're having around us, and the new technologies that is allowing us to get the edge of having more practical use cases. So why it took the humanity that long? I do believe because there is definitely key points and the hard things need to be met so that we can really implement AI use cases. The first thing that I do believe that when you talk about AI, you really need to understand what you want exactly to do. It's not to go in the confusion of just having, that cinematic or drama things of around AI. I want a human that's just interacting with me like we see in the cinema. I truly believe that you have to be specific when you want to really have a value from AI. So you need to describe your use case. You need to be specific. Like today we have clear examples between our hands, like Siri, like Google Assistant. Okay, what we want a digital interactive, I would say robot that is talking to me and can answer me for things that I expect, like weather, like turning on music and so on. So first thing, I think you need to make sure that you have this clear use case description. The second thing that you need to really capitalize on the data, and this is not an easy thing. And in telecom sector, we truly understand this. Today, to have artificial intelligence, there is the machine learning and the deep learning concepts. So you need to tell first what you want, as I said. Then you need to practice or to train the code that you are writing so that you can give the algorithm that you want, what you expect from it. And then it will start do the learning mechanism. And you don't move to the deep learning until you have that bulk of data. Why in telecom we truly understand that? Because in telecom we know how much the data growth is taking the right place and the right edge in the last years. Everyone today, even before COVID and now with more exponential way with COVID, we believe that data is really fueling the machine of AI or the use cases of AI. So the more you have data, simply the more intelligent you can train your model, and you can have deep learning and move to the deep learning where the algorithm itself will start relying on data more and more. Maybe later in this interesting panel, we talk about some real example, how really the machine or the algorithm can start autonomously learn from the data instead of waiting a human or a developer or a technician or an expert who will tell the machine what we expect from the artificial intelligence to do.
So this is really insightful. Two things to keep in mind, Sinan, you're telling us very insightful things here. Goal specific, you should know your goal. Why do you want to do that? I wanted to interact with you saying that it's an explorative work, knowing what I know, what I want to do from the first thing wouldn't be very intuitive at first. Exploration versus being goal driven. We will get back to these interesting questions because, but you mentioned that the second thing that you can do AI without data, and this is all basic evidence, but not everybody can understand that. So this is what we're having with us, Mr. Ahmed Hassaan from Orange, Egypt. He's senior manager of data lake and analytics. So maybe people don't understand what the data lakes are and why they are important for AI strategy and implementing AI strategy. Mr. Ahmed, enlighten us.
Hello, everybody. Well, thanks, Marwan. Actually, before talking about data lakes, I'd like to first define data. what's data and why it is important for AI. I need to actually quote Mr. Sinan. Thanks for telling us that artificial intelligence is like a trial to imitate human intelligence, or the natural intelligence we all know about. So I like to throw an example here. If we are having a human baby with at maximum no intelligence, just born now, and you isolated him from all data sources he may learn from. I mean, like through a human baby in a forest, for example, and you will end up with a barbarian Tarzan, like the famous movies we know about. But what if we try to feed him some data, some inputs? I mean, he will start to learn. He will learn how to move, how to manipulate things, and so on. So data is crucial to whatever you are going to learn. Okay, this is on the human side. When we talk about the artificial side, we are talking here about computers and the digital world. We are talking about a different sort of data that mostly not all of people are aware of. When we talk about data, people usually think of the Excel sheets they have on their desktops and those records everywhere, maybe a spreadsheet you have thrown at your office. But actually, data now is becoming totally different. We have diverse amounts of data sources. Even a YouTube video you are watching is full of data, starting from your IP address and the URL you type, and going through the actual facial impressions of people you are viewing inside your video, the captions, of course, and all the transcripts. All of these are data. All the transactions coming out from your wearable devices, machine to machines, and so on. These are all data. People at the telecom industry actually are aware of those different sources, and we are always eager and hungry to harvest them, collect them, and then comes the hardest part, which is dealing with them. Those massive amounts of data are very hard to collect at the first place. Then you have to read them and go through it and find out which is clean, which part of your data is clean, and which is not, what's usable and what's not. Here is where data lakes comes as a helping tool. Data lake actually is the right concept. I can't call it a tool, actually. It's like a concept rather than a tool. The most famous tools associated with data lakes is big data. Big data as a technology is the right tool you use to collect those massive amounts of data. Okay, and it makes your life a breeze when you are going to deal with a lot of records, millions of records, actually, and terabytes to extract the right amount of information. So in brief, and to answer your question, Marwan, a data lake is just a bunch of servers we connect together, and we collect data from all sources we can find, put them side by side, correlate, clean, and start do the magnificent work of artificial intelligence on them. And I'm sure that we will talk later about how we do this.
Yes, we will dive into the details of this. And as you said, this is about being relentlessly resourceful, as you may collect data from all the sources and make them work for you, because that's the, let's say, the hard part before the magic part. You can do magic if you don't have the right tools for that. Exactly. So this is really great. And this will help us dive more into this topic that we've chosen today, data, the core piece of AI. Let me go to you, Soulaimane, and the question is clearly, we said we talking about the importance of knowing what you're looking for, about that data is very important. Ahmed spoke about very important prerequisites to manipulate your data, and talk about data lakes in a way that it helps data scientists or AI teams be concentrated about high quality data. We will get back to that. But Soulaimane, I think that when we speak about data, there are a lot of, Ahmed said, there are a lot of sources, and maybe you have a lot to say in that topic when we talk about alternative data.
Yeah, exactly, Marwan. Thank you so much. So basically, let me just focus a little bit on what Sinan and Ahmed just said. Actually, a data lake is more than a technology, it's a methodology. Today, to be successful in any kind of big data or AI project, there is no that much technological issue. The most the most challenging things are deeply related to organization and the way you're going to structure your data. Basically, a data lake is just a huge bunch of servers, just like Ahmed said, but able to store internal and external data, whether it is structured or semi-structured or unstructured. So basically, in Africa, we have this kind of issue where companies are not completely ready to ingest a lot of data. When it comes to structured data, I mean, the data they use for their core businesses, the data is almost all the time ready. But when you wanna put some additional intelligence into this data by augmenting them, utilizing other sources, you will find that companies have some difficulties to retrieve this additional data. For example, there are not a lot of companies who have analytical logs of what is being done on their digital application or website. You will struggle finding data or open data around your country or the sector your company is working on. So it comes to alternative data when you have this specific issue, which is really related to the African context. So basically, what you need to know is that everybody by living is generating a bunch of data. I mean, when you're driving on the street, when you're calling on cell phone, when you are discussing with somebody, you are generating a lot of data. And this data is being used by some big players to do a lot of things. And let me just give you some example. Currently, we are working with the Central Bank of Morocco, trying to implement new approaches to compute the Moroccan KPIs in order to find a solution to this specific pandemic situation that we are currently living. And just working on Google Trends API, namely being able to know what are the keywords that are being searched on Google, for example, is a kind of alternative data that can make us compute utilizing advanced algorithms, namely deep learning, forecasting algorithms, and NLP. The confidence levels of the population. For example, when it tends to unemployment, you can go on several job posting platforms and try to scrap all the job offers that they are and to monitor the way they are evolving in order to have additional insights. And it's not just for this kind of organization that are public organization. You can do exactly the same with other companies. For example, if you are a company like Volkswagen, let's say, and you need to know where your people, your consumers are looking for which kind of vehicles, so you can offload your stocks, you can use this kind of similar additional data by going on the social network, on the websites of your competitors, on Google Trends API, on Twitter, etc., to try to take the most advantage of this data that is accessible. We call it third-party data, namely data that is not your own and it's not the data of one of your partners. And let's give just a white example for agriculture. Utilizing satellite imagery in order to compute the indexes of the quality of your agriculture is something that is very interesting and growing in Africa. So this data is alternative because it's not yours and it's not one of your partners.
This is all very insightful, Soulaimane. As you may have understood from what Soulaimane has said, you need to be creative. As Ahmed and Sinan said, it's about being resourceful and it's about collecting data. Also, this means that the use case can completely change if you find a new data source that you can rely on. But this is very important, as we said. Let me get back to you, Sinan. Being creative is very important when it comes to data. But creativity sometimes doesn't save us. There needs to be a lot of discipline, a lot of processes to be implemented to make sure that the work that one should be doing can deliver great results. What are the best practices on this, Sinan?
True. Thank you, Marwan. I think I would highlight two aspects for that. The first one, as my colleague said, today it's a journey. Ahmed said a very interesting example for the baby or Tarzan kid, that it's for to mimic a human, you need to think, okay, how things going on there. Actually, what happens that first we start with capturing the data. This is what human does even when we were babies. So via senses, via our parents, we started to capture this data, and then we try to connect the data to each other. So when I see the cat the first time and I hear my mom saying, this is a cat, so okay, I will try it, and then I will start building a set of data or set of knowledge that I'm putting in my head. And then I will start checking my own ability to really verify, is this a cat or is this a dog? So maybe I will first point at a dog and they said, this is a cat. So my mom will tell me, no, it's a cat. So this correction is making me even better. So the first aspect that this journey, when you go to practicality for any AI use cases, you want to do in a way the same for the machine. You want to put a lot of data, like my colleagues Ahmed and Sinan said, so the data sources are important. And here, as much as you have data, you will have the edge to build your own base. And then you need to build your own practices of how you, want to explore data, how you will take the advantage of this lots of data, and how you can really have the proper quality of the results. And here comes the example where machine learning and deep learning start to work. So in the machine learning as example, okay, it's like the mom telling the baby, okay, this is a cat, this is not a dog. So you are giving the machine more aspects and more data parameters that is making the machine really identify the cat from the dog. And then we move to deep learning when we ask the machine, okay, do it by your own. Then each time they will try and they will answer. So today, as example, in Siri and Google Assistant, they take the feedback. Was I answering your real question or I went wrong? So then it will be feeded to the same algorithm and then optimize things. So this is one of the practical examples where we can see it's not an easy journey, but the result is really interesting. And the more data we have, the more even advanced features we have. But here we need to understand that also the machine has some capacities that a human is not easy to have it. And the super fast processing of data is not something easy that you can have in the human side. So once you have this AI use case implemented, you will take the luxury of that. The machine is much accurate, less manual mistakes, and more fast, near real-time implementation of what you want. So this is really the fascinating thing about AI. The other aspect I want to highlight here actually is when you talk about practicality, it's not that easy to, once you are exposed to all of this data domain, you need really to consider the protection and the privacy of those use cases. So the eagerness or the hunger of data, like Soulaimane and Ahmed said, of course it's there, but in the same time, once you are implementing, you need to make sure that you are not violating the rights of the humans, and you are making sure that you are under the boundaries of not in legal only, legal and ethical aspects that you need to respect, so that the machine may not violate one of our human rights that we are. So it's not easy, again, as you said at the beginning of the panel, but I think the results always will be fascinating and exponential by time.
This is very insightful. You said a lot of things that we will dive into in the next questions. Sinan, you talked about minimizing the number of human errors, and that opens a very wide topic about automation for AI. And this is something that people may overlook, especially when we start to believe so much that it's more an art than a science, and it's more about creativity than engineering a process and repeating it. So this takes me to Ahmed. You were very specific to defining data, to defining the architectures that could help AI teams and data scientists and analytics people drive value. So Ahmed, there's a lot of cultural aspects towards that, and a lot of architecture aspects to facilitate that. So Ahmed, you have a lot of inputs on these two topics. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Marwan. I'd like to start with the architecture aspect, actually, and how it enforces the way we are thinking of data right now. So I'd like to talk about a concept about 10 years ago, the famous concept of garbage in, garbage out when you talk about software programs. And that was actually inherited from the way we store data. We use back then classical BI systems with that are rigid and they stick to a certain schema. You should know the way data will be pushed to your systems before ahead data comes. But since the introduction of actually unstructured data tools like big data, like I was saying before, those tools actually get us the ledger of not throwing data away. Each and every bit of data you find around you is important. It's not any more garbage. You don't know when you can make use of it. So of course, we all think about what if those are really unuseful data now because we have missing parts, for example. I meet someone on the street and I don't know his name, but he told me a very nice idea, for instance. So this is a missing part of my data. What was the guy's name? Can I extrapolate this name? Can I interpolate this name? We use fantastic statistical algorithms right now, starting from just linear interpolation and then going to the extent of using neural networks and some advanced techniques like maybe KNN and so on to extrapolate those missing parts of the data before just throwing it away. Because you never know which part of your data will influence the way you think in future and your algorithms think in future. That was regarding the architectural part. Regarding the social and cultural part, actually, the AI industry is currently influencing all of us and changing the way we think and live and deal together. It has a major impact on the way you purchase goods, for instance. In the old days, you just go to the supermarket, buy something and get out, and nobody knows actually what you have bought, except for you, of course. Now, each step you do everywhere is connected to a device, and it's generating a log record that another application or a software can make use of. Usually, artificial intelligence collects data about user behavior, customer journey, for instance, in the telecom industry is very important for us to know all the touch points customers are dealing with us, what they are doing, and what types of promotions and offers and goods they are interested in. And that enables us as a business owner or as an entrepreneur to suggest the right product at the right time for your customer, getting him maximum benefit and getting you maximum revenue, of course. This is very interesting for business right now. That was a good part, but the bad part of AI and its impact on culture is a bit different, actually. People are still afraid of robots invading the world, and this is, of course, not true. Maybe the worst part is the ethical impact of artificial intelligence in our life. We can now be facing some AI techniques that are being implemented in justice courts, and that may have very bad impact actually on judging people because we all have our personal differences that cannot be reflected onto data and records in the systems. Moreover, I can throw an example here actually from a famous Amazon algorithm that was developed, I think in 2014. They started implementing it to recruit people, and it was about filtering the CVs. It was found out later that this algorithm, this artificial intelligence model, was biased to males rather than females while it was hiring. I mean, it was selecting males for most of the technical jobs. And that's, of course, a gender bias that is not allowed in the industry. Of course, when they dig deeper, it was found that data they were feeding to the AI model was not accurate. And they were actually neglecting a lot of inputs that ended up with a biased AI. That's why still your data is important. How you deal with it is much more important.
This is a very good example, Ahmed, on how data can influence your AI work. The goal here responds to what Sinan said. They knew what they want to do. They want to filter candidates. They had data, but they didn't see that this data can imply all this bias, and that the results can cause for Amazon. Not just, let's say, not just that the use case didn't have good results, but also on an image and communication level, that was a very touchy topic. So this is very important to say that AI is a holistic topic that starts from the data and goes even to ethics and intentions. And this is all very passionate to discuss. We will get back to these points to bias and how to avoid bias from the start, or maybe not avoiding it, but de-risking it. Soulaimane, let me get back to you. We've talked about being creative. We're talking about alternative data. We're talking about creativity and practicality. You've given us very good examples of how we can engineer our way or hack in a very we need to be very careful about this word to hack the data sources in a way that we get the data that we want for our use cases. But you talked also about data privacy and the importance of data privacy in Africa. Within the regulations aren't moving that fast. Data privacy isn't a business or a topic for just lawyers. It's a topic that data scientists and people who work on data should understand very well. So what's your takes on that, Soulaimane?
Yeah, I'm going to answer you, and in the same time, jumping back to what's have been just said. So basically, when we work on a data lake, we are not in the old framework of ETLs, namely extract, transform, then load. You want to be more like an LET process, load first, then extract what you need before you transform. So basically, when it comes to that, what does it mean in a privacy context? It means that you're going to load everything, at least everything you may need someday. And after that, you're going to extract what you need and transform. So you are taking data, which is not minimal. Basically, this is the big data paradigm. But in the other hand, you have the privacy paradigm, which asks you to take the minimum amounts of data, of personal data, to be able to achieve your goals. So there is a huge rule, which is called the proportionality of the collect and the transformation to the use case. Basically, what the regulation says is that you cannot ingest or transform personal data unless you're providing something back, or you have some use case that are going to utilize this data that has an additional value created. Plus, you need to specify it to the owner of the data when it's personal. So basically, this can look like an issue. You need to load first before you start working. But in the other hand, you cannot, you need to minimize the collection of PII data. So what's the solution to be able to outcome this issue? Basically, you can today work with modern architectures, modern data lake architectures, utilizing cloud technologies without harming the owner of the data and without being afraid of any kind of privacy issue, because the data scientist doesn't need to know that Soulaimane, to take the same example, has bought this kind of good from this grocery store in order to try to do some resell or some retargeting use case. You just need to know that X, Y, 4, 5, 6, Y, Z is buying this kind of good from this grocery. Namely, you can hash all the personal data. The data scientist doesn't need to know who is doing it. He just needs to know that this specific person that I don't know is able to have done that. So basically, one of the main architectures that we can use in Africa in order to be able to do data science and AI at scale is the hybrid data lake. Why hybrid? You need an on-premise part, namely servers that you own that are on your data center, where we can do this pseudo-anonymization, these hashing algorithms, these asymmetric hashing algorithms that cannot be broken, before sending the data onto the cloud, where you can work with all the scalability of the cloud in order to process the data. Once you have all your analyticals done, you can come back with the results on your on-premise platform and do the depth pseudonymization. So in this specific way, you are able to collect a lot of data, but it's not personal data anymore once you have transformed it into a hash, once you have do the pseudonymization process. So the contradiction that we started with, where I was stating that you need to load first before extracting and transforming in order to be on the big data paradigm. And the other aspect, which is you need to minimize the collection of personal data, is solved by this kind of architecture, because the pseudo-anonymization process that you do on your servers is making you working on non-personal data, even if it's at the end of the day related to somebody. So once you do all the AI processes and data science great job with the scalability of the cloud services, you can come back on your infrastructure, the one you own, and being able to de-pseudonymize in order to do your business activation of the use case.
This is very insightful, Soulaimane. It's clear that it comes from ground field experiences, and this is what's amazing about our panel today, is that we are digging deep into these topics, that we are not talking about them superficially, but we are really getting into the details and the final recommendations from the experts present with us. Back at you, Sinan, you've talked about human error and automation and the power of automation when it comes to AI. And I think that your input on that field is very, very important.
Thank you, Marwan. Yes, I do believe that key point in artificial intelligence that allow humans to capitalize on this new technologies is to understand the difference between what we can and what we cannot do, and what the machine can do and what they cannot do. And I do believe that it's not only about AI. Automation in general is based on the fact that the machine can do things in a way that is more accurate and more fast than what we do. And a simple example, when you put as example a process robotic automation, what you are telling the robot to do in this example, that just do the very same manual steps that I'm doing on a specific system, and you give them all the inputs of data that they need, and they will be working 24/7. They will do it exactly accurately. So if you ask them to push the mouse button on a specific field, they will never miss it. While by practice, we know as people, and we all work in telecom, I believe operators and technology companies, we know how much it's part of the reality that humans do mistakes. Even if you are at 10, 15, 20 years experience, sometimes you will be sleepy, sometimes you will, someone will talk to you and so on. So this is really the beauty of difference between what machine can do and what human can do. And I totally agree with Ahmed. It's not about the fantasy that, you know, they're having more capacity in some areas, they will control the world. No, it's not the same. Of course, it's not. Our brain is definitely something that had been created in a very, I don't know, miracle way that really makes it think and explore and so on. And this is what humanity is all about. But the machine is coming to complement, to collaborate what we are doing, the efforts there. And here I want to insist on what Soulaimane said. Today, a very interesting block, we call it the unknown in data, which is really empowering the AI, is what Soulaimane said. Today, you need to know what you want in terms of use case, but you will never know where data will guide you once you really explore it with the heavy, powerful machines. So one, I won't call it a mistake, but I would call it a limitation, that today human, when they explore data, they in a way will use their experience how they are exploring the data. While the machine, in the methodology that Soulaimane elaborated, when we load everything, the machine sometimes will explore for you some patterns of data via mathematical equations and mathematical methodologies that will give you some results that you may miss. So it's not a mistake of a pure definition of mistake, but you may miss it in terms of you, because of you are biased with your own experience analyzing the data. Sometimes you will miss some aspects. So here comes the fact that the data will not neglect any kind of data because of the stereotype or the way you are used to analyze data or the way you are looking to data. That's why data is really crucial and important, and is even giving new edge when we go with the what Soulaimane said, that we load everything and then we allow ourselves and the machines to explore this data. The last thing that I want to comment on regarding the fact that we also in Orange Jordan decided, based on what Soulaimane said, that we go with a hybrid methodology, because it's really key that the flexibility of the technology that you are using is really allowing you to move with the fact that you respect the privacy of people, and in the same time use the luxury of massive storage and massive machines where you can push the data over there without the challenges of local complexities, and making sure that you're putting the proper encryption, hashing, and different aspects of securing the data. So in a nutshell, I do believe truly that definitely AI has a very good advantage in terms of minimizing the human mistakes if we respect all the ethical and privacy issues. And this, again, as Ahmed said, by time exponentially will be really changing our lives. A lot of things that was consuming time to fix it and to correct a lot of human mistakes, it's there. Things will be moving towards more focus. People will be relying on the machines on a lot of daily aspects that we're doing today, even inside our daily job tasks, and we will be focusing on enhancing it and optimizing it. Thank you.
This is really insightful, and it's also clear, Sinan, that you have been into a lot of debates of what the machine can do and what the machine can't. And this is clearly one of the key activities data people and AI people will spend a lot of their time doing when they are evangelizing or talking or explaining what is their job and what's the mission and what's the goal behind data exploration. So let me get back at you, Ahmed. A lot have been said about hybrid architectures, about the use of data lakes. They've been talking about Soulaimane and Sinan about loading and then exploring. So maybe this is something you should comment as you started talking about data lakes.
Sure. Thanks, Marwan. Actually, I'd like to bring the attention of people to something very interesting about data when it comes to AI. The more you learn, the more you are able to execute and to predict. The more you learn here when it comes to artificial intelligence is the more data you collect. So having a lot of data means having a lot of machines that you need to administrate, tailor, and take care of. And of course, all of this comes at price. I mean, you have to spend more money to build your own infrastructure. This is usually not applicable for everyone. So people now are tending to use cloud as a technology to store their data. You don't have to keep your data on-prem. I mean, you don't have to collect your servers by your own and connect them and know all the internal details about how to store data on data lakes or big data. But here, this brings us to another dilemma, which is data privacy. In Europe, you have a law like GDPR that enforces everybody to keep data anonymously about a customer and to take his permission to keep their data or to delete it on demand. But in Africa, as we don't have this unified law, and I'm sure that each and every country in Africa has its own internal legalizations that enforces people about how to store data, what to keep about persons and what to not, when to make it anonymous and when to reveal it on demand for court and justice, for instance. Such regularizations are actually prohibiting and limiting the way you store data, sometimes on-prem, and limiting you from going onto public cloud. This is another aspect when you are designing your infrastructure and designing your machines where you will be storing data. Another interesting techniques is using advancements in technology rather than expanding horizontally by spreading a lot of servers and connect them together, is expanding vertically by adding accelerated graphical processing units for deep learning and neural network analytics, for instance. This actually expedites the way you explore data and finding relations faster rather than using a lot of machines and relying on cloud that sometimes is not available due to laws and regulations, as I said. Last but not least, actually, I'd like to see us in Africa advancing in the cloud industry because I'm sure that this will enable us to store more data, to have access to different data sources, to run more algorithms. And on the technical part and technological knowledge part, I'm sure that Africa now is full of skilled people, actually. Most of us are, most of the countries, I mean, in Africa are now considering the learning curve of AI. It was very steep, actually. Now it's available for everybody. Online courses are there. People should be encouraged to learn more about AI and how to deal with data, since the technology advancement is already ahead and before us.
Thank you, Ahmed. These are very insightful inputs from you. Soulaimane, back at you. A lot have been discussed. You've been talking about hybrid technologies, hybrid architectures, how to make the most of data and AI thanks to these tools or these ways to see things differently. So what can you add on that front?
Yeah, so basically I would like to add two things. The first one, which is really related to public cloud. I mean, each and every country in Africa have its own regulation, but you can always find a way to use public cloud as long as you keep the most sensitive data on your own data center. So this is why we introduced the hybrid concept. But the other thing that I would like to say is, do we still have in Africa the luxury to not to go on AI? I mean, look at the situation of our continent. We really need to be implementing these new ways of analyzing complex issues and being able to solve a dramatic situation that the continent is currently living. And let me just give you one example that we've been developing for more than 1 year now at AIOX Labs, which is one of the companies I work on. Just to let you know that one pregnant woman out of 2 this year will give birth without being able to see a single doctor. This is the reality of our continent. So we can speak about privacy, etc., and we will do everything needed to respect the privacy of this woman. But in the other hand, is it normal that we have such a high mortality rates for pregnant women and for their newborns? This is something impossible. So we have been developing now a deep learning algorithm being able to analyze, thanks to sound imagery and echographies, the problems that this specific newborn will have before the doctor site is able to identify it, in order to solve these issues for pregnant women in Africa. And the accuracy that we have is better than the best doctors that we have here in Morocco. So basically the question is not being a substitution to a doctor, but being able to fight the medical desert that we have in Africa. Do we still have the luxury not to go on this kind of technologies? Do we still want to see a lot of newborns and pregnant women dying each and every day in our country? This is something that cannot enter my mind, as we have now the technology to face this dramatic situation. So yes, the privacy is important. And yes, again, being able to set up the encryption before starting the processing and being sure that we are on top of the international regulation standards is something very important. But in the other hand, in Africa, we need to understand that the situation cannot stay like this. And AI is a leverage that we need to, it should be the focus of the continent for the next 10 years in order to solve each and every issue that this continent is still facing. Because do not think that developed countries will generously build this kind of algorithm for yourself. You need to build it from Africa for Africa. And this is something very important. And we are doing it currently, so everybody can do it, thanks to the courses that have been stated by I think, Ahmed or Sinan a few minutes ago. So yes, regulation is important, privacy is important, but in Africa, the urgency to go on AI is even higher than in developed countries. That's probably what I wanted to add.
This is really insightful, Soulaimane. With all this, we have a lot of insights. Dear audiences, you have been able to listen to a lot of ground field experiences and a lot of top-notch experts' recommendations on how to deal with data when you approach an AI problem. Sinan, Ahmed, and Soulaimane, we will have a round of 1 minute each to let you conclude the key messages, the key recommendations for everybody watching us today. Sinan, 1 minute for you.
Thank you, Marwan. I would like to start by saying that in brief, I totally agree with Soulaimane. AI is key for the humanity. AI is key and opportunity for the third world generally to catch up with what's happening. Fear should not control it. Privacy should be respected. Technology is there. We need to know how to use it, for what to use it, but we should definitely be open to that. We should be eager to take the wave of change, because I do believe we need it. And not only in a business side, I do believe, like Soulaimane said, at all levels, government, humanity, NGOs, everyone should be onboarded to make sure it's happening in the right way, but it's there, it's coming, we should be prepared. Thank you. So Marwan, I think you are muted.
Ahmed, here you go. Yes, you're right.
Okay, thanks, Marwan. Actually, with the last 1 minute, I'd like to highlight for all of our audiences to not be afraid of data. You can be a data scientist and you don't have to work for a big company to have access for data streams. Data is now public. You have public data sets everywhere. You have a set of very fantastic tools built online and open source tools you can compile at home. And don't be afraid to deal with data. Data is the future. AI is definitely the future. My colleagues already have highlighted this fact very much. I can't stress any more on this. So people, you are encouraged to try to play with data, try to apply algorithms. You don't have to be a mathematician. You don't have to be a scientist in a lab to know how to apply artificial intelligence techniques. Now it's available really for everybody. And if you don't know how, online courses are there. Go through it, study, learn to be a productive member of your social and environment in Africa.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you for this intake. Soulaimane, 1 minute.
Yeah, for my last minute, I would like to encourage the companies that are listening to us to go through this new way of solving complex issues. And I would like to highlight two things. What we called privacy by design and what we called industrialization by design. You don't want to wait until you have done a lot of experimentation before asking you the right questions. And the right question is, how do I do my AI use cases while being compliant from the beginning? And how do I do my experimentation with the minimum industrialization gap, like the minimum time and manpower in order to transform a good result that I found through my through my experimentation into something that has a reality and that gives me back money back. Because if you don't go this way, you will think that AI is just a waste of money without tangible results. When you think at the beginning, how would I implement, once the use case is done, how will I transform it into tangible results before starting? This is the only solution to create a huge ROI starting from the beginning. So basically, ask yourself, once I have the results and once the human will take the result, because the human is going to implement the results of my algorithms, what should I do?
Thank you so much, Soulaimane. Thank you, Mr. Sinan, Kamal, Ahmed, Hassaan, Soulaimane, Lahrech. You've been of a very insightful input for all of us. Thanks a lot for being with us in the second day of Orange Africa. We thank all the audience for following us for this first panel. We will start the second panel in just a few. The second panel will be discussing another topic, which is of a very great importance. So we have talked a little bit about alternative data in this first panel. In the second panel, we'll talk about open data, rising source of power. What is open data? What are the sources of open data? We will hear stories of projects based on open data that delivered real value. And what the economic contribution of open data, the best practices to do to deal with it, and what could be the recommendations of the experts in that. We will be with Hatem Haddad, co-founder and CTO and head of R&D department at AKUMEN Tunisia, Jihad Hanneshi, who is the co-founder of Majesty Tunisia, and Mick Levy, who is Business Innovation Director at Orange Business Services. The panel will be in French, so I'll be switching the language. See you in a few. We'll start at 11. Thank you, everybody, for watching us, and thank you, all the experts. Thank you, Soulaimane. Thank you, Sinan. Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you for organizing. Thanks.
Hello, AKUMEN.
Hello.
So we're broadcasting live. So let us just wait 2 minutes, and we will start the panel. Thank you.
Bonjour, Jihad.
Bonjour,
Ça va?
comment allez-vous?
Ça va bien, ça va bien.
Alhamdulillah.
On s'adapte.
Ça va, ça va. On ne s'est pas croisé, hein. J'ai bien croisé
Ahmed, oui.
C'est
Oui.
ça. Mais pas vous.
Non. C'est lui qui fait plutôt les sorties. Moi, je suis plutôt bureau.
Ok.
Back office.
Ouais.
Bonjour, Mick.
Bonjour à vous deux. Bonjour à vous.
Bonjour.
Même ravi d'échanger avec vous aujourd'hui. Ça va bien?
Enchanté, Mick. Same here.
J'ai bien reçu ton email, Mick.
Cool, super. Bah, écoute, on verra ce que ça donne. Je ne sais pas si on n'est pas encore en broadcast. J'ai l'impression que oui.
Je sais pas.
C'est bien, au moins le public peut suivre aussi les coulisses. Dans ces événements total digital, c'est que tu peux aussi suivre les coulisses de ce qui se dit entre les confs.
Et puis le thème, c'est l'open data, hein, donc soyons open.
Allô?
Oui, bonjour.
Allô? Oui, bonjour, c'est Leïla. Ça va?
Oui.
Bonjour, Leïla.
Pardon?
On va commencer.
Oui, on commence, mais si vous pouvez rajouter le nom de l'entreprise.
Ouais,
Juste
donc Hatem,
voilà.
name, c'est à droite.
C'est à droite, il y a la liste des participants. Vous pouvez cliquer sur plus et rajouter le nom de votre organisation. Comme ça, on aidera les gens à vous reconnaître. En fait. C'est bon? Vous avez réussi à trouver l'option ou pas?
Yes, pour moi, c'est fait.
Ouais, ça fait pour
Ok,
nous.
super.
Donc, on attend que Hatem nous ajoute AKUMEN à droite et c'est fait.